Wow. Wow, this place really filled up. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to Williams. This is the second best day of the year. And I think you know what the first best day, you're going to be experiencing it in about 3 years and 9 months when we say goodbye to everyone that we're now saying hello to. But it's really, we are so excited to have 550 new people in the Williams family, 550 new families in the Williams family. It's really a wonderful day, and we ordered up some good weather. I want to start with a question. Who here is dropping a child at college for the first time? Just put your hand up. Okay, I went through that last year. The purpose of this gathering is to tell you it's really going to be okay. You don't believe it now, but by the time we're done, at the end of it, you'll mostly believe it. It really is. And watching my daughter go through her first year of college was a wonderful thing. It was not without its bumps, and I'm sure your children will not be without their bumps, but she came out at the other end, you know, such a older and wiser and more settled person. It's a wonderful year that your children are heading into. So I'm by the way, I want to introduce myself. Sorry, I'm Adam Falk. I'm the president of Williams. This is Williams. You came to the right place. And I'm going to speak for a few minutes, and then I'm going to go ahead and introduce my colleagues now so we don't have to hop up and do it every time. We're going to hear in turn, just going down the row, from Leticia Haynes, who's our Vice President for Institutional Diversity and Equity. Steve Klass, Steve Klass, the Vice President for Campus Life. Sarah Bolton, the Dean of the College, and Rick Spalding, Chaplain to the college. And so again, our task is to make you feel really super about what's to come. So your students are starting on a journey, and it's a journey, of course, not only of 1 year, but of 4 years. And you're dropping them off. They're basically large, overgrown adolescents, still kind of taller than you can quite, for many of them, taller than you can quite imagine, but really the children that you raised. And 4 years from now, they're going to graduate, or 3 years and 9 months from now, they're going to graduate as adults. And it's one of the privileges that we have who get to work with kids going through this transition every day is what an amazing 4 years that are. How much kind of incredible growth and development, and how much at the end of that time they're really, really different people. And that's the journey that they're starting down. And we're going to be on that journey with them together. I want to talk just a little bit about that. What's going to happen between now and then? What's the purpose of these 4 years here at Williams? There's actually a kind of weird national conversation about that, and I want to touch on that, which frames it a little bit in terms of value, makes it very kind of economic sounding question, the value proposition of higher education. You can't pick up the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and turn to the education section and not hear that question posed in various ways. And a lot of the rankings out there around colleges seem to be very interested in the economic return on your college education. So I want to think a little bit about it. How do we value it? Is it worth it, the investment of money, and I think even more the investment of time and energy that you and your families and your students are going to be engaging in. And often we think of that in terms of outcomes, or we're encouraged to think of that in terms of outcomes. And the more quantifiable those outcomes, the better, because we just love numbers. And if you can count it, it must be really, really important, right? So a high starting salary, grad school acceptance rates, things like that. Well, you know, I think Williams does fine on those kinds of measures. They're easy to measure. Our students do fine economically, most of them when they graduate, and a lot of them go to grad school, and Forbes and US News really love those numbers. It's fine. Finding a job, yeah, that's really important. Our graduates get jobs. Don't worry, you can breathe. Many of them, in fact, use a really wonderful Williams alumni network to make that to help that happen. And I think one of the things you're going to see is that the relationship to Williams is not just 4 years; is in many ways a relationship of a lifetime. And finding a job and a career and changing those is something that's often done with the help of other Williams alumni. Becoming famous, kind of hard to measure that. Kind of hard to know if that's important. How about finding a spouse? That happens a lot here. Not immediately, but I know a lot of alumni. A lot of them are married to each other. Sometimes they find them at reunions. I'm not sure that's really the purpose of this either. Make the world a better place. Maybe becoming equipped to do that is getting a little closer. Harder to quantify, right? Harder to put into a ranking and publish in a magazine and sell to nervous high school students trying to choose a college, but maybe a little closer to what we're after. I think what's the value of Williams? What do we want to do, and what do we want to see your students do? So we provide a comprehensive educational and development experience that aims to produce graduates who are effective in the world and effective in all sorts of ways. And the impact of what your students are going to go through here is going to play out over their entire lives. And it's, I think, most deeply felt, will be most deeply felt in the ways in which they take a Williams education that they get in 4 years and that use it to adapt in a world that is going to change more in the next 50 years than any of us can imagine. And it just can't be measured by the things that are easy to measure when someone walks across the stage in 3 years and 9 months. And from the Williams alumni that I've spent a lot of time with, you see this again and again. It's the adaptability of what goes on here. So how do we do it? What do I want we want your students to value the most here? Their interactions with people. That in the end, and again, I'm sorry I can't put a number on it, but that in the end is the most important thing. I mean, we tell ourselves stories. I think every institution, every culture, and we're a culture, a community, tells itself certain stories to remember who they are. And the stories that we tell are a lot of them around relationships between faculty and students and adult mentors and students. And there are three, I just want to mention three famous faculty here that your students will hear about. One of them is Mark Hopkins. Mark Hopkins was president for 35 years in the 19th century. A little hard for me to imagine right now how you managed to do that. I've been here 5 years, and putting in another 30 would seem, I'd also be quite old, I'd be in my 80s. But that's the way it was done back then, and he also taught moral philosophy to all of the seniors. And so he was the great teacher as well as the great president. And there was, to make a long story short, a famous incident in the 1870s when James Garfield, the only Williams alum to become president, was speaking with a bunch of alumni in New York. And they were complaining about the state of the facilities, and as alumni are sometimes wont to do. And Garfield stood up and said, "Don't worry about the facilities. The ideal college is Mark Hopkins on one end of a log and the student on the other." And the point that he meant to make is that that's all that any of this is here for, is to create the conditions for students and faculty to interact with each other. And the rest is just an enabler of that, and you do what you have to do to make that possible, but that's the heart of what we do. The second faculty member I'd mention is a guy named Bob Gaudino. He taught in the political science department here in the 60s and 70s. For those who knew him, a transformative figure. Talked a lot about uncomfortable learning and was very interested in an idea that we're still interested in today, that some of the very best and most important learning that goes on when students aren't quite comfortable in the situation that they're in. That in which they challenge themselves to be in situations and with people that they're not used to, and that's a critically important part of really in the kind of intense growth and education that we want to inculcate here in our students. And Bob Gaudino, we still have a Gaudino Scholar, Gaudino Fund that funds some really interesting programs around this idea of uncomfortable learning. And the third I'll mention briefly is James McGregor Burns, Williams class of 1939, who taught also in political science, great chronicler of presidents, died in his 90s a couple of years ago now. He was a scholar and a teacher, and a kind of, that's again, I think, an ideal that we hold here. Our faculty are very active scholars, and one of the wonderful things that will happen to your students when they're here is they'll be able to engage with faculty, not only around the things that we already know, but around the creation of ideas and discovery of ideas that are new. And the most exciting thing that can happen to a student here, and it happens to most of them, is to get connected to a faculty member and get to know what they're doing in their research, to do research with them, to get on the other side of being just the recipient of knowledge and become the creator of it. So our goal here is to expose students to new things inside the classroom and outside the classroom. Very many of your students know exactly what they want to do here. I'm going to major in biology, I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to major in economics and math and art history and chemistry and become a consultant. I'm going to major in physics and become a college president. We want to shake them out of that. The most interesting things here are things they've never heard of. And so as they wander around in their first couple of years, and it seems to you that they're trying a little of this and trying a little of that, that's not what's happening. They're exposing themselves to a lot of new ideas, things they've never heard of, and in doing that, building a base of ways to think about things and ways to engage with each other that are going to be incredibly important when they settle on their major and really figure out what it is, the thing they're going to spend most of their energy on. So we really want them doing that. We would like them to be a little unfocused in the first year or two. And we want deeply to expose them to new people. One of the great change in this college compared to 50 years ago is the extraordinary diversity of people who are here, and diversity along any possible axis you can imagine. Gender, race, ethnicity, sexual expression and identity, class, religion, citizenship. Everyone belongs here, and every single member of this community is as important to this community as every other one. And the diversity of this community, thank you, that's a good applause line. Absolutely right. And that diversity benefits every single person here. And so when I look around the campus, when I walk around the campus, I'm incredibly excited by the student body that I see. And I'm even more excited by the student body that I get to know. So one last thought before I leave you. The students are not customers. This is not a commercial relationship that we all have with each other. It's a moral relationship. To come here is to buy into something, to buy into being in a community, engaging in that community, productively, bringing your full self to that community, and getting everything out of that community that it offers. And our side of that is to support every single student and to do everything we can to nurture the kind of community that allows every single student to thrive. And we do that for each other not because it's a commercial relationship, but because we owe it to each other as members of a single community with a moral purpose. And that's really what we're here to do. So you're starting on this journey too, or your students are on it. A few words that I tried to take to heart myself a year ago. Give your children some time and space to become who they're going to be. It's going to take some time. And help them to embrace the great variety of everything that Williams has to offer. They're going to have moments of success. They're going to have moments of real difficulty, and celebrate the successes with them, support them through the difficulties. It's going to be fine. And we're your partners here in helping your children succeed. And by succeed, we mean that not that they're to get a 4.0 grade point average, but succeed to become the people they're going to be in all the ways that they are here to do that. So they are forever, as of today, part of the Williams family. You are, as of today, part of the Williams family. Welcome, and thank you so very much for sharing them with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Adam is great, as you all just heard. I, too, extend a very, very warm welcome to you all as parents, guardians, families, and friends of the wonderful students who are joining us. It is an honor to stand here before you today. I am, as Adam said, Leticia Smith-Evans-Haynes. I'm Vice President for Institutional Diversity and Equity here at the college. And exactly 20 years ago, in 1995, my parents sat where you're sitting. Not literally, because this building didn't exist then, but they dropped me off in Williams. They drove me to Williamstown. They stayed a little while, and they dropped me off for first days. So I'm a proud alumna of the class of 1999 and a graduate of this fine institution. I missed it so much that I'm back now. 3 states later, 3 careers later, and after coming back and meeting with the wonderful people here on this stage, I'm here. And I missed it, and you may ask, why? What did I actually miss? So let me tell you what I missed, and it's something that Adam just touched on briefly. But Williams is truly, truly a place where everyone, regardless of their differences, can live, learn, and actually thrive. So as vice president, I work strategically with all community stakeholders and constituents, that includes students, faculty, staff, alumni, to name a few, to ensure a diverse and equitable and inclusive campus. So I help guide efforts to conceptualize, define, assess, nurture, and cultivate diversity as an institutional and educational resource and also priority. Every person in the Office of Institutional Diversity and Equity works to ensure that all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or identity, socioeconomic, or ability status, have meaningful access to all of the resources of this college. Two examples are the Davis Center, which in partnership with students, faculty, staff, alumni, and off-campus communities strives to facilitate collaboration, dialogue, and explorations for social change on this campus and in the larger community. In addition, we have the Office of Special Academic Programs and Support, and that aims to make sure all students, irrespective of socioeconomic status or race or ethnicity, actually thrive here at Williams and beyond. So that department actually houses a number of the fellowships that are available outside of the institution and from the institution. So have no doubt that your sons or daughters, if they need anything, that our doors wide open. In the most wonderful Williams way, which is also a very, very highly effective way, all offices here, including the Dean of the College's office, the Vice President for Campus Life's office, the Chaplain's office, and every other office here, work closely and diligently to ensure that all our students have the optimal experience, so that throughout their tenure here, they engage in critical discourse, they engage in thoughtful discourse, and they engage in respectful discourse. And there's no question that some of that discourse will actually surround issues of diversity and equity. So today, as we coordinate curricular and extracurricular activity to become more diverse and inclusive, we have his story and we have her story to reflect upon, and we have them as powerful guides. So you may know that during the first 170 plus years of this college's existence, there were no women on this campus. When women arrived on campus in the 1970s, there were very few of them, and there were very few students of color. But today, 40 plus years later, Williams embraces strategic efforts to ensure that its classrooms are diverse, with students and faculty of different races, ethnicities, genders, to name a few. So when you consider the fact that this first year class has 269 women, 282 men, 8% international students, 38% US students of color, 16% first-generation students, and at least 50% of the student body receives financial aid, there's no question that Williams' commitment to diversity and equity is staunch. As I close, I add that I do not assume that we all share the same understanding of what diversity is. So when I say diversity, know that Williams strives for identity diversity, in other words, what one may look like, and cognitive diversity, how one may think. We believe that diversity and exceptional are hand in hand. They go hand in hand. So a great school requires exceptional people, exceptional perspectives, and problem solving. A great school benefits from including people with diverse perspectives. Differences in identity, race, gender, ethnicity, religion, ability, and sex identity and orientation, socioeconomic status, all correlate with cognitive diversity. This week, as the first-year class comes to campus, it really does come to life. The people behind the papers, the essays, the applications are all here. Their presence will be seen, but also felt across this campus. We know that each member of this class is unique and brings with them diversity in thought and being, and for that, we are extremely, extremely grateful. So once again, welcome to Williams. Thank you for being here with us and for sharing with us. I hope you enjoy the stay, and I will hand it over now to my colleague, Steve Klass. Thank you for your time.
Hello and welcome, families. I know from my own experience, I've done this 3 times with all 3 of my sons, the most recent a year ago. I know today is a pretty surreal day. There's probably a mix of a million different emotions going on. I know when I was sitting out there listening to these things, I absorbed about 1 out of every 3 or 4 sentences. So when you hear things multiple times, it's intentional. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes sharing some of the goals and principles that drive the work that we do in student affairs here at Williams. All told, Leticia, Sarah, Rick, and I represent nearly 250 staff members whose daily collaboration, they work together across a broad range of goals and a tightly woven network of student support. And you've already met a lot of them today because I've seen a lot of folks around helping. So collectively, our aim is that all students would thrive academically, socially, and emotionally, and that they'll participate as constructive and active members of a vibrant and welcoming community. And to help them thrive, we seek to ensure that no matter what is going on in their lives, our students recognize that there are no wrong doors for them to walk through when they have questions, problems, concerns that they need to address. And that just as importantly, they have access to critical services, programs, and support 24/7 during the academic year, from both on and off-campus resources. And Sarah's going to talk about that in more detail right now, but I want to repeat both of those things, right? That there's 24/7 access to critical services and no wrong doors to walk through to find them. As Vice President for Campus Life, I'm responsible for working closely with the following offices: our Chaplain's Office, Student Health Services and Counseling Services, Campus Safety and Security, our dining services, all of our residential life and student leadership development activities, and the Center for Learning and Action. But having said that, I want to caution you that we don't think about these things in terms of how we divide up our work. That's just an organizational convenience to worry about who reports to whom. We think every day about the ways in which together that we can most effectively invest these remarkable resources in the service of student success. And as Adam said, we are first and foremost a community. And this shared concept of community informs all the work that we do. And to that end, one of our greatest attributes here at Williams, I believe, is our scale. On the one hand, we're large enough to have a significant resource base. And as wonderful as our programs and our facilities are, I'm really referring to the amazing people who work here with your students. And on the other hand, our small scale as a campus community allows us to develop the kind of meaningful individual relationships that make the Williams experience uniquely personal. So we all know from our own experience that we're much more effective in taking care of one another when we really know each other and when we make ourselves available with as few barriers to access as possible. Making the most of one's entire college experience starts by recognizing the critically important connection between a student's co-curricular experiences and the development of emotional intelligence. So with that in mind, we provide myriad opportunities that encourage students to pursue their artistic passions, to feed their spiritual selves, to identify and fine-tune their leadership skills, to serve in the broader Berkshire community and, quite frequently, globally as well, to take care of themselves and each other emotionally and physically, and I think most challengingly, to simply relax. And while the kinds of learning that these experiences stimulate aren't readily duplicated in the classroom, they're frequently complementary. So as robust and rich as the academic experiences are here, we aim to balance that out with co-curricular ones as well. So along those lines, I wanted to share an excerpt from the language that frames the goals of our residential life program, because embedded in these goals are the three key principles that comprise the foundation of our work in campus life. First, that the program should enhance the intellectual growth and emotional development that occur both inside and outside the classroom. Second, that the program should be intentional about developing community and supporting the cultivation of emotional intelligence in students. And third, that the program should provide the intellectual and emotional space for students to develop their own identities safely and fearlessly, to adapt to campus culture, to thrive away from home, to embrace the diversity of backgrounds and ideas to which they're going to be challenged, with which they're going to be challenged on a daily basis, to feed their intellectual curiosity, and to become active listeners and socially mature problem solvers. Our work is predicated on the belief that these next 4 years will be among the most transformative in your students' lives. Today, your sons and daughters are taking an important first step in their own journeys, in their first entry meetings, immersing themselves in their new communities, sharing expectations, being introduced to campus culture, and meeting new and very different people from around the world. And it almost goes without saying that this relentless process of learning and analyzing and reassessing their own beliefs and values are going to bring challenges along the way, and perhaps raise some issues that neither you nor your student have had to face before. And as we all know very well, but our students are in the process of learning, it's when we address these most difficult moments head on that we grow the most. So with that in mind, I can say with great confidence that everyone is going to need some kind of help with some aspect of their college experience sooner or later. And I can say with an equal amount of confidence that that help is available on campus, and all students need to know need to work with our highly accessible people, programs, and services across the college. And we hope that you'll encourage them to do so during their 4 years with us, and the earlier the better. So today, they take this very important first step onto the ramp of independence. I'm guessing that the most challenging part of all of this for you is going to be to allow them to manage their own way through this critical period of their lives. It certainly was for myself with my sons, and I will say it doesn't end after college, so it gets very exciting. Like you, we have very high hopes for your students in terms of their personal development over the next 4 years. As your students find their own voices, as they experiment with new identities and gain their footing as members of this new and ever-changing community, they're going to need space and they're going to need grace. It's our aspiration that all of our students will thrive as resilient, productive, engaged, and empathetic community members and global citizens. So it's now my pleasure to turn it over to the Dean of the College, Sarah Bolton.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see all of you. You may be feeling like there couldn't possibly be much more to say. Indeed, the wisdom of my colleagues is wonderful to hear, and thank you so much, Adam and Leticia and Steve. I can offer you a couple of extra things that will come with my brief remarks. Mine are the only remarks that come with one phone number. You can memorize it or you can write it down. It's also on the website. And one email address. So you can kind of listen for those as you're having more and more waves of words pass over you, and also think about the future experience of your students in their classes, listening to many wise people say many things. So first I wanted to thank you. I just want to join my colleagues in thanking you for sending us your amazing sons and daughters. This is a day where I always feel overwhelmed with gratitude to the families who are sending us those remarkable young people who they've supported and guided over so many years. We spend the summer getting ready for them to come, and we are so excited that they're here. As Steve said, soon your students will be settling into their entries and beginning this exciting and challenging process of getting to know the people and places who will mean so much to them over the next 4 years. As several of my colleagues have said, these are people and places that are very likely different from those that they've grown up with and from whom we really expect that they will grow and learn tremendously. I want to take a moment to thank you for the character of those students that come from the character of your families and your communities. Then your young people bring that character with them. We are better because of the ways that your family's experiences and wisdom and perspective and values will be dwelling with all of us for the next 4 years through your sons and daughters. And I genuinely mean that. It changes all of us and it changes all of our communities every year. We know that this is an exciting and also a challenging time for parents, and so I want to take the rest of my short time to say a few things about the particular supports that parents are often most concerned about. If you have more questions about any of these things, you can look on our website and find the right folks to talk to, or you can reach out to our family program. That is, here comes the email, families@williams.edu. Isn't that easy to remember? So if you Google just families and Williams, this will pop up, and you'll get to Rob White, our Director of Family and Parent Programs, who can point you to the right resources for any kind of concern. So don't hesitate to reach us in that way. Even better, and I'll say a little more about this later, you can encourage your son or daughter to find resources themselves. So I want to talk about a couple of things in specific. One is healthcare, and the other is campus safety, and then just conclude with a couple of more global remarks. So first, healthcare. The college has a health center that includes nurses, nurse practitioners, health educators, nutritionists, physicians, as well as psychological counseling services and a psychiatrist. Visits to all of these people are free, and they are unlimited. Williams is actually quite unusual in higher education at the moment in being able to offer students as many visits as they need to address any kinds of concerns that may be coming up with their health or well-being. The health center has hours on weekends as well as weekdays for drop-ins as well as for appointments, and there's an on-call number that students will know for off-hours crises, whether those are physical or psychological. Of course, as needed, we can also transport your students to other local healthcare resources and help them set up care with physicians or other practitioners locally that they may need. If you have particular concerns about how your student will manage a current health issue, please don't hesitate to reach out to the directors of health services or psychological counseling services. They'll be happy to help you out. I want to say now a little bit about campus safety and security. So our campus safety and security department is one of those departments that's open 24/7, 365 days a year. Our officers patrol the campus, but they also, even more importantly, make it their business to get to know students. Dave Boyer, our director of campus safety, who was in the back, oh, he's still in the back there, often talks to me about how when students are graduating, they come and they talk to those campus safety officers about what their 4 years were like, and particularly about how Dave's officers may have helped them through a difficult spot or helped them learn a challenging lesson. They're amazing people. And they remember names back 20 years. It's a really remarkable thing. Students will tell you. Leticia and I haven't discussed that yet as regards her own undergraduate time. But anyway, we'll have that conversation. So, they also obviously work closely with our local police department, and students get to know them in all different kinds of ways. One of the most common things that students write in their thank you notes to campus safety at the end of the year, which happen really frequently, is the following thing. You let me into my room when I locked myself out, over and over and over again. So if you happen to be one of those parents who has a son, like I do, who can't actually keep track of where his socks are, and let alone where his key is, you can count on the fact that we will continue to let that child into his room as he grows up and learns to keep track of his things. So even though your students have only been here a few hours, I am pretty sure that they already know this one central fact, which is that 24/7, 365 service that campus safety provides is a superb first call to make for any kind of serious trouble that may come up, again, any time of the day or night. Here comes the phone number. Ready? Okay, so if you want to reach their dispatch, if you're really concerned about a situation, you can call them at 413-597-4444. It's pretty straightforward. The reason I recommend that is because those dispatchers can find any other resource. As Steve said, we're deeply interconnected across these resources. They can find any other resource that might be most helpful for your students. So they can contact health services, both on campus or off campus. They can contact the psychological services that we have on call 24/7. They can contact my office, the dean's on call, or others, including you, as needed, day or night, every day of the year. So if your young person calls you and seems to be in immediate difficulty, that's the number to start with. And you may think that this is kind of a virtual conversation, and I'm just sort of waving my hands up here. I will say that last year I said this exact thing, and about a month into the semester, I got an email from a parent who said that her daughter had called her and seemed to be having an allergic reaction that she hadn't had before, and the daughter didn't know what to do and was trying to figure out what to do. And so the first thing she did was call mom. Good idea. So she called her mom, and her mom said, you should call campus safety, call this number. So the mom and the daughter both called, and it was actually that phone number, this giving of parents the phone number, that helped them get that situation straightened out right away. So I encourage you to use it. Also, among those on call 24/7, 365 are also the 5 deans in my office. We work with students on every aspect of personal and academic support, and also help to guide them to additional resources and opportunities. Like Leticia said, the college has lots of fellowships, both things that students can do in the summers and after they graduate, things like study away. All of those opportunities run through my office. And I want to mention specifically one more particular support that may be counterintuitive to you. That's what we call academic resources. So I know your students are here because they have been and will be incredibly successful academically. Like, they've got that all covered, I know. So you're thinking, oh, academic resources, that's maybe not so much for us. I beg to differ. I think that academic resources are in fact something that nearly every Williams student uses. We look at the data, we know that this is the case, even though Adam doesn't really believe in data, but that's okay. We're both physicists, so I can give him a hard time. So nearly every Williams student, in fact, uses academic resources of some kind to hone their skills, to strengthen their skills, to move into new areas of knowledge and learning practice that serve them well at the college. They do this over all 4 years. It's what strong students do to become even stronger. And I really encourage you to encourage your students to take advantage of these opportunities. We have peer tutoring, we have a math science resource center, we have writing workshops, we have study skills workshops. And again, sometimes students think, oh, these aren't for me because I'm a super strong student. That's not the right way to think about it. And I really invite you to encourage your young people to make that connection. And also, of course, to make the connection to that other core academic resource that we haven't named for a couple of minutes here, their professors, right? If they have questions, if they're thinking they're struggling in a class and they're most embarrassed to visit that particular professor, that is the person they should be seeing, definitely. Our faculty are so eager to sit with students, to figure out what may be getting in the way of their learning, and to help them through. So if you get that phone call, that's my advice. So, you know, there are many more resources, as Steve said, in the way of support. There's things to support students in their residential life, in their spiritual life, in their career exploration. There's the Davis Center, our multicultural center. But rather than listing all of those, because it's warm and the afternoon is getting long, I wanted to focus just in my last few minutes on a principle, a core principle that may be helpful to you. The goal of all of our offices is to support students and help them thrive and grow as they transition to independence. My own son left for college last year, like a couple of these other folks, so I'm working through this whole transition to independence thing. We encourage them as young men and women to learn about the many resources around them and to begin to take their own initiative to figure out what they want, what they need, what they hope for, and when to step up. And we're trying to make taking those first steps easy for them. To return just briefly to the healthcare example, negotiating the medical system can be really daunting, and you might be concerned about your son or daughter doing that on their own without your help. But if you look at the way our health center is structured, it's designed to help people figure out how to do healthcare and how to do wellness, right? So there's a drop-in service. Students can get immediate help figuring out how sick they are and whether they just need hot tea or immediate medical care. Students who have questions or who aren't sure whether they're sick enough to be seen can drop in. They're welcome. We're happy to help them figure out the ways to take good care of themselves, even if they're not sick, to help them think about their wellness. We do that too. They can come back as many times as they need to, and the health center is really there to help them become experts in their own health, their own wellness, and how to be well going forward once they leave college. So if your son or daughter has a particular medical issue that needs to be managed on campus, of course, again, you're welcome to call the directors of the health center yourself, but we really encourage you to think about having your son or daughter make that call so that they can start to build the tools that they need to start managing their own long-term wellness and any challenges they may have. Just like their parents, students are often nervous as they take these first steps towards responsibility for themselves. We see a lot of students in the dean's office who are, for example, struggling for the first time in their lives with academic work. And it's great that they come to see us. They always want us to sort of do something for them, and what we say is that we will help you reach out to your professor yourself. We'll help you call, we'll help you email, we'll help you think through what you want to say, but we're going to help you take those next steps to help them navigate a way to make the connection themselves. I want to mention, too, that as adults, your students have the right to privacy and to confidentiality in all of their records and their lives here. And I know that's a big transition for parents. We can't legally, by federal law, we cannot call you every time they come to the health center for care, or when they come to the dean for help with an academic situation or a roommate situation, or if they go to campus safety and security to discuss that mistake I made with the rock and the window. We cannot call you to tell you about that. And of course, that would never be your son or daughter. I'm just saying in the abstract. Again, as the mother of a 19-year-old who left for college last summer, I can certainly understand how nervous-making this must be, but this confidentiality is really a good thing. It's part of the way that your sons and daughters are learning to navigate, to choose, to manage, to decide, to reach out, and to step up to their responsibilities. That said, we absolutely do promise to call you if we find your student is in any kind of danger, if there's a major health crisis or another crisis, we will be in touch. Or if your son or daughter is up to it, we'll help them call you themselves. We know that many of our students very wisely turn to you, their families, for guidance on most aspects of their lives, and we really encourage them to do that when they feel called to, and sometimes we help them to do it when that's a hard phone call to make. But we are also really committed to building a ramp, maybe a gentle ramp with some bumpers and safety treads, but that one that will guide them to increasing independence and leadership so that they're prepared to make their way in the world and to make their mark on the world when they graduate. So again, thank you so much for bringing these wonderful young people into our lives. I'm unspeakably grateful to all of you for the chance to walk with your sons and daughters for part of their journey. And now, my colleague Rick Spalding.
One of the many good things about your being here today is that you remind those of us who've been here long enough to get used to things to think back to when we formed our own first impressions of this place. It's good to take a fresh look sometimes at things that have gotten so familiar that you've kind of forgotten how they struck you when you first experienced them. For instance, I moved here from a city, so this looked like a very small and quiet place, very far from the rest of the world. One stoplight, no parking meters. But I changed my mind about that only a few weeks into that fall, when I found myself surrounded here by the world in this student body and this faculty, and tried to figure out how to squeeze a concert, a play, a lecture, and an invitation to hang out in the snack bar all into the same hour or two of a single evening. And as far as my own job as chaplain to the college goes, I remember thinking that bringing together young people with roots in most of the world's religious traditions would probably be about as straightforward as ordering a few pizzas and getting them started talking about common ground. Well, I was right about the pizza. But I changed my mind about common ground, what it might be, how to go looking for it, how to start talking about it. As time has gone by, working with students from the 30 or 35 different world religious traditions that are represented in this student body each year has taught me that a sense of common ground may be the most elemental longing we have, but there's nothing simple about fulfilling it, or naming it, or building it, or even imagining it. Beautiful, yes. Compelling, but not simple, and not quick. When I first came here, I thought I was stepping into a pre-existing community. But I've changed my mind a little bit about that too. Now I think that community is something that we build brick by brick every year and have to live up to the name we aspire to give ourselves. In fact, when I think back to starting off in college myself, I think I thought it was going to be a process of sort of figuring out what I was sure of. Now I think it was the beginning of a long process of learning the art and the discipline of changing my mind. Now I think, what is education if not a continuing process of being willing to consider changing your mind? Students here change their minds and ours all the time You're majoring in what today? So do my colleagues surprise me in that way. There are 4 of us, I should say, in the chaplain's office. Our Catholic chaplain, Father Gary Castor, our Jewish chaplain, Cantor Bob Scher, our Muslim chaplain, Sharif Rosen, and me. I hope you'll have a chance to introduce yourselves to us at some point along the way of these years. We surprise each other pretty much continually as we study each other's sacred texts together and attend each other's holiday celebrations as guests. And we're already working on plans for Rosh Hashanah and Eid al-Adha and Diwali and All Saints' Day. Already organizing for retreats and speakers and weekly masses and Shabbat dinner and meditation sittings and prayer meetings. But the 4 of us in the chaplain's office spend more than half of our time just listening to students, one at a time, as they tell us what's affecting the weather in their minds and hearts. And every one of those hundreds of conversations each year is a sanctuary, a sacred time, whether the particular student happens to be interested in religion or decidedly not so. And my own spiritual discipline as I listen is to remember that no matter what, I've never heard precisely this story before. Every story we hear changes us, doesn't it? Every time anyone really listens to anyone else, doesn't it help to put into place some little piece of the world that we'd like to be living in or toward? And if this place is about helping us all to learn to change our minds with grace and conviction and clarity, it's about something else too, and I think it's my particular job to say this. This place is about changing hearts. Transformed thinking by itself will only take us part of the way toward the world that we all want to live in. We need transformed hearts too, which is to say, hearts that have been seasoned by friendships with people who see the world differently. Hearts that have been both softened and strengthened by listening to stories that are unfamiliar, strange. Hearts that have been opened by the sharing of struggle. That process of heart opening has already begun, right over there. We need transformed hearts, too, to get us where we want to go. So in the chaplain's office, we work particularly closely with the Center for Learning in Action to get our students out into the changing places in the world beyond the edges of the campus map that you're just learning your way to navigate. They tutor and they mentor, they organize and they agitate, they build and they design, they cook and they teach. They do lots of things that don't fit very well into a list of verbs like that. The things they see, the stories they hear, the work of their fingers and their imaginations and their consciences not only changes them, it changes the world. Over these next few years, as this place gets more and more familiar to you through the stories you hear and the visits you pay, it'll be interesting to see what kinds of things you change your minds about. Are 4 years a long time? When exactly does childhood end? And what does the beginning of adulthood look like? Is this a small, isolated place? Is it hard to imagine all those hours of study really happening in that room? All those pages of papers and lab reports really getting done? And all those loads of laundry? Are all these swirling faces, classmates and administrators and professors, are they the faces of strangers? There are some things that don't change, though. And one of the most elemental is that your love and support and courage and patience will help believe all these transformations into being. That's why we're all here, after all, because you put your own heart and mind on the line. Maybe today you're remembering your first impression of that child who over 17 or 18 years has come to be such a familiar, essential part of your life. How much has changed and how much has remained constant. And now here you are, looking at the whole wonder of it all over again afresh, with all the glorious possibilities of heart and mind before us all. We're looking with you, with wonder and with gratitude. We'll be with them through all the changes and through all that abides, and so will you. I firmly believe that this whole adventure will change the mind and heart of the world for the better. So, let's get to it. And let's see what grows from the seeds of all these first impressions. Safe travels. See you in a while. Bye.